You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
Magomed Ankalaev takes on the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Pereira this Saturday at UFC 313 in the main event in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this is probably one of the most highly touted fights of the year. I know we're just into the beginning part of the year, but very fun fight. Alex Pereira's probably toughest test to date, taking on Magomed Ankalaev on a 13-fight unbeaten streak. So Alex Pereira, in my opinion, the best combat sports athlete of all time. Former Glory kickboxing champion, now a two-time UFC champion, only 14 fights into his MMA career. So hard to disagree with that, what he's been able to do in the sport in such a short time, taking fights back to back to back, saving the UFC on multiple occasions. So Magomed Ankalaev, though, probably the biggest threat that he's had, toughest test to date in his career. Like I said, on a 13-fight unbeaten streak. Have to say unbeaten streak versus undefeated streak because he did have a title shot against Jan Blachowicz, which ended up in a split draw. You can argue that Magomed won that fight, but the UFC is corrupt and they don't do anything about the judges. So it is what it is. Went to a draw with him. Coming off of a 3-fight unbeaten streak against Johnny Walker, had a no contest, then knocked out Johnny Walker, and recently coming off of a pretty good performance against Alexander Rakic, who has a very similar frame to Alex Pereira, 6'4", kickboxer, very big for the division. So interesting to see how well he performed. He did have a lot of issues with the calf kicks by Alexander Rakic, and that's going to play a big part in this next fight and to kind of who I'm picking to win this fight. Alex Pereira needs no introduction. Since losing to Israel Adesanya back in April 2023, he's been on a 5-fight winning streak at light heavyweight. Won the belt from Yuri Prochazka. Before that, beat Jan Blachowicz. Knocked out Jamal Hill, Yuri Prochazka, Khalil Roundtree. So I think he's, with this win, probably the best light heavyweight champion that we've seen in the UFC. I know a lot of people out there think it's John Jones, but what Alex Pereira has been doing at this state in his career and actually finishing these guys who I think are much better competition than what John Jones faced. But saying that, I'm going to go with Alex Pereira in this one. It's a very close fight. It's pretty evens on the odds. Alex Pereira, I think he's a minus 120, 125 favorite over Magomed Ankalaev. I just think that Alex Pereira, his leg kicks and his distance management are going to be too much for Magomed in this one. Magomed, known as a kind of one of those Dagestani type guys with probably better than normal striking for guys that come out of that region, but doesn't use his wrestling too much. We've seen it in the UFC, but he's primarily a striker, and I know in the build-up into this fight, he's been talking about how he's going to be using his wrestling for all 25 minutes, but then again, he's only got 31% takedown accuracy. Like, that's very below average, especially for somebody who's as distinguished as him. Comes from a Greco-Roman wrestling background, so usually, relies on getting the clinch and getting takedowns from there or pushing his opponent up into the cage. And I just feel like Alex Pereira, he's going to be too elusive, manages the distance very well. Anybody who tries to close in on him, he's usually punishing them as they come in. So I see Magomed Ankalaev being a lot more hesitant and getting close to Pereira than he normally would with other opponents who aren't going to have the devastating consequences that Alex Pereira can put out there. Alex Pereira just fought a southpaw as well. Magomed Ankalaev's a southpaw. He just fought a southpaw in Khalil Roundtree for 4 rounds. Very close at times. He did get caught, but ended up being able to pull through and get the finish in that one. Uses the front leg to get the calf kick. Usually it's a little bit more difficult to hit the calf kick against a guy that's southpaw when you're orthodox, but was still able to beat that up in that fight and cause damage. And we've seen Magomed Ankalaev be very susceptible to leg kicks and calf kicks in his fight against Jan Blachowicz, was getting absolutely battered. Tried to switch to orthodox stance, was still getting his legs battered. Even in the Rakic fight, he was beating up his legs, and I don't think those guys kick anywhere near as good or as hard as Pereira or are as technical as he is in the stand-up realm. Pereira manages the distance very well, and he puts a lot of forward pressure. He's kind of got that constant pressure in your face, just a very intimidating presence in there. I don't think that Magomed Ankalaev is going to be able to shoot takedowns very well as he's backing up. I think that at the beginning he might be pushing a lot of forward pressure, but I feel like as the fight plays on, Pereira's going to be getting a lot of respect, and he's going to be the one holding the center of the octagon, not letting himself get pushed back. He's very good countering, very good all around. He's very good at dictating where the fight takes place, and I don't think Ankalaev is going to be able to get the respect to get him back against the cage to where he's going to need him to be to get takedowns. I do see Magomed Ankalaev potentially getting takedowns in this fight and winning rounds. We saw Pereira get taken down by Jan Blachowicz and get control for that first round, but in the second round he was taken down, was able to get back up and win that round. Won the second round, won the third round to get the decision. So, and Jan Blachowicz was kind of gassed. He was pretty gassed after that, the small grappling that he did, especially with him being on top. And Pereira didn't look like he was really gassed or really worn out from any of that grappling. So, and Pereira's only going to be getting better from that. Recently got his black belt from Glover Teixeira. I'm not sure how deserving he is of that, considering he hasn't been training jiu-jitsu for that long, primarily a striker. But I do think he has good enough takedown defense, very long, very strong. He's going to be probably the bigger fighter in there. He's an inch taller, but he's super thick. He's probably 235 walking in there. And he's also going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. So I think he's going to be able to keep him at bay. And if Ankalaev does get close or does get him down, I think he'll be able to get back up to his feet if it does go to the ground. So another thing is the competition that Pereira has been fighting. He's fought Israel Adesanya twice in the UFC, who, you know, not as good as he used to be, but still very good competition. Sean Strickland, former champion. Jan Blachowicz, former champion. Yuri Prochazka, Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree, all of these guys, elite light heavyweights or middleweights, former champions other than Khalil Roundtree. And then you look at Ankalaev's record. He's beat Alexander Rakic, who's very good, and Jan Blachowicz. The rest of his career, Johnny Walker, you know, he beat Johnny Walker twice. Who's not beating Johnny Walker? Anthony Smith, I don't rate that win. Thiago Santos, very good. Kind of towards the end of his career, back when he fought him. Volkan Ozdemir is very good. Nikita Krylov, that's a good win, but I just don't see the best. I feel like Alex Pereira finishes a lot of these guys, whereas Magomed Ankalaev is taking them to decision more often than not. So I think Pereira has more finishing potential on the feet. We've seen Ankalaev put people out, but I just think Pereira's the better striker. I think he's going to have more power, a huge reach advantage against a guy like Ankalaev. It's going to do wonders for his ability to keep the distance, not let him get close, to get those takedowns. So I think he's going to beat up the leg, slow down his movement, slow down his ability to generate power with the strikes and to generate any power with his takedowns. And I think Pereira finishes him. I think Pereira finishes Magomed Ankalaev. And, you know, in the later rounds, maybe the championship rounds, we saw the way that he rallied against Khalil Roundtree after kind of getting beat up. So he's not the type of guy who's going to quit. He's going to go out on a shield. And I don't see him kind of cowering away from the takedowns by Ankalaev. I see him taking the center of the octagon, getting in his face, and beating him up. And I think Magomed Ankalaev, as soon as he realizes that he's not winning the striking and can't get his takedowns, I feel like he's going to fold to the pressure of Alex Pereira. Where Alex Pereira goes from here, not a lot of options. You look at the top 10 of the UFC, you got Jan Blachowicz, who's coming off of a split decision over him, but he's fighting Carlos Ulberg coming up. I think the winner of that should get the next title shot at Pereira. But after that, I mean, it's Nikita Krylov. I think he's fighting Dominic Reyes. So I think if Nikita Krylov wins that, he should get a title shot. But I feel like Pereira, once he beats those two guys, and I feel like he could fight and beat those guys in 2025. I think he would go out and retire. He'll be 38 in July, so I think he'll go out as the greatest light heavyweight and probably the greatest combat sports athlete of all time. So curious to see how this one plays out, though. I kind of went back and forth over the last year or so, knowing that this fight was eventually gonna happen. And I know Ankalaev's just a scary monster of a dude, but I just don't think his grappling is going to be good enough to get Pereira to the ground and keep him there. And I think he's going to have to take a lot of damage to get there. And I just don't think there's a man in that division who can take that amount of damage from Pereira. So I'm going to go with Alex Pereira by finish, KO, TKO. I'm gonna say round 4, like his last fight against Khalil. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think I'm crazy, if you think Ankalaev is gonna get this one done. But I do have a lot of faith in Pereira in this one. So thanks, guys.